I'm Rob Strange and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of IOSH, that's the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health, based in Leicester. I've been in that role for about 12 years now, which is quite a long time as a CEO in professional associations.
My name is Simon Culhane. I'm the Chief Executive of the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment, and it's a professional body operating in the wealth management and capital markets field of the financial sector. My responsibilities are to run the organisation because I'm the Chief Executive, and I've been in that position for 8 years.
My name is Simon Sperrin. I have been for 30 years Chief Executive of a number of membership organisations representing different constituencies in business and professions. The last one was the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply. Before that I merged 6 associations into the Lloyd's Market Association representing underwriters in the insurance market of Lloyd's, and before that London Chamber of Commerce.
Regarding engagement of members with IOSH, we've got about 42,000 members, 85% of which are in the UK, so we have pretty regular contact. I would say, though, in broad terms, that probably only maybe 20% of members are engaged in the sense of volunteering to take part in committees or a trustee or council, or most likely branch and group activities where there are committees all over the place. And people come and go from these roles, so probably at any one time about between 15 and 20% are actively engaged. Therefore the other 80 to 85% basically pay their subscriptions, receive the magazine, get their designatory letters, hang the certificate on the wall, and watch from the sidelines, I would say. We do a number of things really to try and get member engagement, because we would always prefer that. For example, our networks of both branch and regional and district groupings of members in the UK and around the globe, and also we have sector-specific groups of members, so the largest of which is Construction Group, and the Offshore Group, Agriculture, Retail, Communications, etc. So we try and put on a whole programme of monthly talks and seminars and courses through those groups to try and attract as many members as possible to become involved. And quite often when passive members do attend a meeting, usually in the area where they live, hopefully they think, well, that was worthwhile, and there's some nice people here who do the same job as me in a different place, and there are actually benefits to just networking. So we do that, and of course through the magazine we encourage people to volunteer for roles, and through the website as well. So we do lots of things, exhibitions, stands at exhibitions, conferences to try and encourage everybody and get everybody involved. But at the end of the day, I would say it's still 20% most of the time.
Yes, like any organisation, we lose between 5 and 15% of our members, depending on the grade and category. Fewer at the top, the fellows, much lower attrition rate, and even those who are retiring, they want to keep theirs. I think it's a bit like the sort of gold card syndrome. When you reach the top, you don't want to let go. But yes, we lose members partly because the industry restructures, partly because members retire. So every year we need to redouble our efforts, and I always make it clear, and it's not always clear to as many of our board members, that if you want a 5% net increase, that means a gross increase of 15%. We've run lots of campaigns within the sector, not commercial advertising, but certainly within the firms that are likely to. We've been running many campaigns, and we've been helped immensely by legislation. Whilst on the one hand we read about all the scandals that are taking place in the banking sector, which is to a part on the periphery of what we do, the retail side has actually had the regulation tightened considerably. So if you're a retail wealth manager or reselling of financial products to the retail market, you have a higher level of qualification requirement, a higher level of mandatory CPD for the first time from 1st of January 2013, and a higher base level of integrity.
How to get members, this is the question, and also how to retain members. In my experience, you can't do enough, you can't do too much to get members. Occasionally campaigns can help, but actually it's providing a service and being necessary, being relevant, that's going to make people renew. I think for professional bodies, the main reason why people will join is because they either want or need the qualification. Wouldn't it be nice if the law said you can't practice in this profession without that qualification? We need to sell that idea to the employer. And I think that the best growth that we got in the CIPS was through advertisements that specified our qualifications, and through companies whose company policy was that they want people in procurement to be qualified people. I think in most membership organisations, retention is more important than recruitment. It's not always that difficult to get new members in, because if you're a good salesman, if you have a good sales team, they will be able to convince people that there's a value. The real test is at the end of year 1 or the end of year 2, will they renew? Was it worth it? Did they get what they were promised? In the case of professional bodies, the big danger point is when they've got their qualification, they've taken the exams, they're not a student anymore. You're not on their mind every day like you have been during those hard years of trying to match the requirements of their work with the requirements of study. Once they've got the letters after their name, there's a tendency for them to think, well, I've finished now with that organisation. We try to hold on to them through CPD requirements, but most of all by being relevant to them, by helping them be better at their job day by day. That's what's going to keep them in.
We survey our membership in total every second year, and we used to do it by sending out hard copy tick box forms, but of course now it's mainly online, and the last time we did it, I think, was 2011, yes it was, and we had a very high completion rate. Statistically speaking, it was a very valid number. I can't remember the exact percentage, but it was bordering on 8-9% of the membership responded across all categories of membership. We asked them all the typical questions. Do they attend branch meetings? Do they attend group meetings? Are they volunteers in any other capacity? Do they perform their continuing professional development? And in all of these areas we then say, and what was the experience like? Has it in the last 2 years got better, got worse, stayed the same? And we go through a whole range of questions like that. The website, do you find the website easy to use? Do you use the discussion forums? And we get them to rank the benefits of membership. And the monthly magazine always comes out on top. And I think that's because it drops through the letterbox and it's glossy and colourful, and they think, ah yes, IOSH. So that always is the first thing people think of. But also doing their CPD through the online recording system on the website, attending branch and group meetings, going to the annual conference, etc., all rate highly. So when we've got all the results in, they're all analysed, and a lot of cross-cutting and analysis goes on, and into age ranges and levels of membership and qualification, regions of the UK or countries of the world. So we can analyse the data in pretty well any way possible. And sometimes it can be quite daunting, because there's probably a 3 foot high of data, and finding the really important bits out of that can be quite a challenge. But our Executive Director of Membership and our Communications Head usually prepare a presentation which first of all goes to the Board of Trustees, so they can learn what the members feel about the various things we do and we offer. And then it goes to all the committees, and then is rolled out to all the branches and all the groups, to the committees, and often to those who attend monthly membership meetings. So we really do, it's a slightly different message for each audience, but we do disseminate as much of the information as we possibly can so that they can learn from it as we do for continuous improvement.
CPD being the biggest benefit is now far and away the biggest members benefit. At one stage it used to be anodyne things like initials after their names. Now it's something tangible. You actually get learning, and that's a big boost. We run lots of campaigns for that actually, and most of our firms, if not all of them, now have CPD schemes, and a lot of them are tying their CPD scheme into the professional body CPD scheme, and some of them are directly linking up with the CPD auditing and administration tool, so they're really integrating their systems into ours. And when they do that, they're adding in non-members as affiliates, so it all becomes very joined up. So lots and lots of action, and we do lots of work to try and make sure people know what they get from their CPD. And one of our points, and our key differentiating points actually, is that we don't charge for CPD. CPD is free. It's what you pay a membership for. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet. So we charge if it's more than 2.5 hours, so half-day seminars different, but bite-size 1 hour, 2 hours, either in person or electronic, that's free, and that's what you get as being a member. We survey our members annually, and we ask them a whole host of questions, apart from the basic demographics of who they are, what they do, what services they use, what they'd like to use, what's good and bad about the organisation. And we collect that. It seems to be an inordinate time for it to get analysed properly. It takes about 2 or 3 months. And we get probably about a 10 to 12% participation rate on that. Used to be paper driven, more and more now it's electronic, and it should mean that things should be a bit faster. And then we use that gets fed into new products or new ideas. We actually very actively do it, and in fact very good timing, because only this morning I was just going through those people who leave us a comment and an email address. We email them back and actually talk to them, and that was 300 this time, and we usually get terrific extra little bits from what they suggested, and many things help us improve. And even actually the worst critics, and we do go back to the worst critics, they're not quite so worse when you talk to them on the phone.
If we're on the ball, staff in the organisation are providing services every day, so we're getting a lot of information back from the frontline staff, and I think it's important to recognise the value of that. It's not just about doing surveys that helps you understand customers, it's actually looking after the customers properly and listening to what they say. At SIPS we also carried out a commissioned survey by an independent survey company every couple of years, and asked sometimes the same questions, so that we got a trend over time, but also some new questions. Then the senior management team would review the results of that and see whether we're picking up the messages and whether we're adapting, and particularly whether we've done anything since the last survey which has hopefully turned the numbers in the right direction.
I mean, referring back to the 80-20 rule in IOSH membership, where perhaps 20% are actively involved in some way on a committee, or being a trustee or a member of council, or in some way doing something on a voluntary basis. What we find is that those people, if you imagine a dartboard, they're the people in the middle. They're very involved, and the more involved they become, the more the stronger their opinions on how we operate and what we do and when we do it. So although they become passionate about the cause and the organisation, the more knowledgeable they become, then they will question and challenge us as the paid executive quite fiercely. I think the 80% of members who basically are happy to get the magazine and the certificate and the post-nominals are very unlikely to challenge us unless there's a particular issue, a government review where they have particularly strong opinions, and then their desire really would be that we as their professional body recognise that they have a strong opinion and that we will represent that opinion, if we agree with it, in government circles. And then I think when the 20% of volunteer members Those that get very close may become part of the presidential team or on the board of trustees. They then change again, and far from being quite challenging and demanding, they almost suddenly begin to see the whole thing from our point of view, the staff who are doing it day in, day out, all the year round, and they suddenly begin to realise that actually we all do mean to do the very best for their organisation, and we have a lot of highly skilled, highly competent professional people. And those few in the very centre of the dartboard bull ring, if you like, then become very strong supporters and advocates of what we head office staff are saying and doing, and they can become very supportive and good friends.
Well, you've got to stay relevant, there's no doubt about it. We're in a competitive environment. If our members don't like what they get here, they do have a genuine choice now to some other bodies they can belong to. So I think it's relevance and value for money are key. It's interesting when you ask the question, if your employer doesn't pay, and in some way or other 70% of the funds are paid by employers. And although we're a charity and therefore the individual can get back the money, just pay out £130 or £150 in a lump sum is something that makes people gulp. So you can see that there's a problem there. But what I find always interesting is that when they are asked the question, would you pay for it if your employer didn't, they say yes. But our members actually, truthfully, you can see when they don't have a job, they go quickly onto student rates, or we have a rate actually for those temporarily between jobs. And they're very quick to say, I'm between jobs, can I have my half rate? So money is quite important. So making sure we get value for money is key. And we've been able to hold our membership prices now for 2 years. And it'll be the first rise, in April will be the first rise for 3 years. And that's an element of demonstrating that, to use the Prime Minister's adage, we're in it together. But retaining value for money and relevance are the key points.
I think I'd pick 3 particular challenges. The first is that compared with most commercial companies, professional bodies have many stakeholders, and balancing the different expectations of all these groups is difficult. Groups, of course, including your members, but your members usually include all kinds of different people at different stages in their careers, working for all kinds of organisations, from government through to small owner-managed businesses. But in addition to your members, you've got members of the board, volunteers in a non-executive capacity, members of your council, members of the branches and committees that help you, all the organisations that you deliver your services through, the universities, colleges, private training providers, and of course your suppliers and your staff. So quite a complex situation. People with all kinds of different expectations, some that you're going to grow and make a profit and be a commercial success, others on the contrary that you're upholding the standards of your profession and giving it a good reputation with the public, in the press, with government. So balancing all of those, and in particular I think giving the whole organisation a clear focus on the few things that we are going to do best and that we're going to do next, that to me is the big challenge for the board and the chief executive. Second challenge, I would pick the money. We're not-for-profits, many of us are charities, and therefore there's a tendency to think that we're not there to make money. But like any other business, if we don't make a profit, we're not here next year. Maybe we'll survive a couple of years, but usually there aren't sufficient resources to make a loss for very long. So we have to be on the ball commercially, and we have to make a profit. The term not-for-profit is a really bad one. We go bust just like anybody else. But we've got one arm behind our backs because we're not here to go in for something because it makes a profit. We're only here to go in for something because it supports the profession that we're here to serve. So the normal things that you would do in order to be successful commercially are the kinds of things we don't do. Nevertheless, we have to be commercially successful. So to me, that's the second challenge. Reconciling the not-for-profit, those wider objectives that we've got, the objectives of the public good and the benefit to our members, with the need to keep the money coming in. And third challenge, reputation. Any organisation has to guard its reputation and can fail or succeed according to how people feel about it. But for us, we have that in spades, because part of the reason we're there is to create and preserve and enhance the reputation of the profession that we serve. So we're in the reputation business. There are two reputations we've got to think about. Those of our organisation, which is mainly for the internal audience. In other words, do our members think we're good for them? And then externally, does the world outside think that our profession is an important profession and worth preserving? So reputation really, in a way, goes to the core of our business. Why are we here? We're here because the profession needs to act together to create the right impression outside and to deliver the right service to the public.
I don't really think the 80% passive members is a problem. I think from my own experience that's fairly general within professional bodies, certainly in the UK. But what a lot of people do is pay their subscription, or their employer pays it for them. They get a certificate on the wall, designatory letters after their name, post-nominals, and a monthly magazine which keeps them in touch, a website. They may attend the odd course or buy the occasional book, but by and large that's what they want for their money, and they don't want personal involvement. And the other 20% do want personal involvement.
Passive members are not a problem per se. People join for a number of different reasons. When I say do CPD, actually I think the CPD rate is much higher. The proportion though that send it in for auditing is only about 50%, because we can see from the take-up of a lot of our apps and technology that the take-up is considerably higher than those sending it in. And we know that we have a whole lot of e-learning products where people will just do 1 or 2 of those a year. So they won't have done what we recommend, the 35 hours, but it's not mandatory. It's only mandatory for certain sectors. Customer-facing sectors, it's now mandatory as a requirement by the regulator. And that's certainly boosted attendance ratios and participation rates. But they're not a problem as such. But I have to say, in our surveys of CPD, more and more every year, the number of people doing CPD rises. It's just whether it rises up to the threshold of 35 hours a year.
The majority of members of, I think, all the associations that I've run have not been active members, and that's one of the key challenges for any of our membership organisations. Clearly people who ring you up and want some help, people who buy the products you're selling, people who come on the courses, they will want to renew, and hopefully they're happy customers if you're providing a good service. The big problem is, what about the silent majority? I can't put a number on that. I think one of the mistakes that people can make in professional bodies is to think that there's only 1 or 2 sorts of active membership. Actually, if a member is reading the stuff you send them, if they open the email, if they check your newsletter, if they're getting briefed and feel up to date as a result of being a member, it doesn't matter whether you hear from them or not. They're happy customers and they will renew.